Going to clean this masking tape off, and then we're going to get the valve in here. We're going to show the valve going in. We'll show the setup of the seal, the inner spring, and then the outer spring, and then the collets. So get Steve's head put together finally, and put it on the block, on the crankcase. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to show you the installation of the valve and the valve springs. We've had all of the valves cut by a professional valve service, and we've had the seats cut. But just being the people we are, we just want to show you what you can do should you choose to. Most people in the professional side of this don't bother doing this, but because this is early stuff and not, you know, early stuff, you can take a bit of valve grinding paste and put it on the valves, put it into the valve guide, the valve into the valve guide. You can take one of these stickers and put that on the valve, and then using your hands you can do that to make the valve turn. And what you're doing is you're going to check to see that you have a seat all the way round. Now, the valve springs are really going to pull the valve into the seat, and I believe from the point of view of the modern valve cutting equipment, and years ago too, they did a different angle on the seat to the valve. The valve is a 45 degree, the seat is a 46. And that gives the valve a good seal, as it were, when the valve spring pulls it in. So, but just to be sure that you've got a seat all the way round, you can put some valve grinding paste, go around it, and then you can check your seat and your valve to make sure that you have a seat all the way round. You're going to do a lot of work, and I think it's worthwhile. As I say, most people don't bother with it, but that's one thing you can do. So what we're going to do now is we're going to clean the valve, clean the seat really well, because we put that valve grinding paste on it, and then I'm going to show you the correct way to put the valve springs in to the onto the head, and the valve and the head, and because there is a way of messing it up, so I'm going to show you that too. So we'll get on with that in a minute. Okay, so now we're going to show you the procedure for putting the valves in and the spring positions. So we've cleaned off all of that nasty grinding paste off the valve seat and off the valve, and made sure that none of it transferred inside, and we've got that all cleaned up. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to put some lubrication on the valve stem. You've got to remember you're going to have a start up, and you don't want them hanging open while you're trying to start it, because that really slows the process down. So I'm going to put that in, make sure that's nice and free. Then you've got a valve seal. Your valve seal is the next thing to go on. We're going to get our cameraman to go around the other side of the head.
That would be me.
We're going to put that on there like so. So you can see that position, that's going to stay there. Now I want to explain to you how to put this this arrangement together. So you've got the top hat for the spring, you've got the spring, and then you've got the bottom plate, which you put the spring in there and there. It's very important to put this in correctly. Should you make a mistake and put this in first, I was going to try and show you a CAD plated one because it would have made it clearer, but we'll make it clear. If you see that through that valve like so, and you've put it in first, you've got a major problem, because you're going to end up with bent push rods and all kinds of things. So please make sure you don't get confused. The spring in first, then the seal keeper, and then you're going to put that on the valve. It looks a little awkward, but that's the way it is. We're going to put that on. I'm going to get the tool for compressing the valve spring, and we'll show you that. So with the valve spring compressor on the spring, holding the cap on, we're going to push this down, if we can. We're nicely on the valve, and it's really easy when it's on the valve properly. You can push it down, it's hands-free, it's wonderful. Then we're going to take a small amount of grease. I'm going to put that on the keeper, like so. We're going to drop that, stick that to the valve itself. Now you can see that's right in underneath that ridge, right there. Take the top one, put that in there, like so, and then we're going to release the valve spring compressor. And you can see that going on there nicely. You can watch that the keepers have stayed in, there's nothing pushed out. You know that's in there and it's safe, and that's going to stay in there till the next time it's overhauled. So we've cleaned the surface of the crankcase, or the block if you like, and we're going to fit the head gaskets. Now some head gaskets come with the word top or up or whatever. On this head gasket, I don't see anything. There's nothing on it. So one would conclude, well, it doesn't matter. Well, actually it does, because you can see there. If we put this on this way round, we have blocked the hole. And over the years, some of these gaskets have been made with 2 holes so that you can't mess up, but they've obviously gone back to the system where you can mess up. So it's vitally important for your engine that these 2 holes match up as in there, because if you put it on the other way up, what you've done is you've blocked up a very important waterway, which is only going to cause you an overheating problem. So that's something to watch out for. I'm not sure if the thing does, but actually I've just seen the word top. But anyways, in case yours doesn't get marked with top, you see it's top there. So that's something to look out for. So we picked up the dowel holes there and there, so it's nicely on. We've got the holes showing there, so we're in good shape. But as you can see, it's not very clear for an old person anyway.
You're not that old, Ralph.
Now we're going to fit the cylinder heads. The cylinder heads are marked right there as to what side they are. This is the B-bank side, and I'm sure all of you are aware that the B-bank is the one furthest back, and I'll point that out just in case you aren't aware of it. When you look at this side of the engine, you can see that this bank of cylinders is just slightly further ahead than this bank. So this would be A, this would be B. So we've got our head gasket on, we went through the right position of that, and now we're going to put the head on. So what I do is I look down the holes to make sure I'm in line. You've got to keep it fairly straight so that you're not twisting on the studs. And that's it, that one's on. So there's 20 washers and 20 nuts on each head, which is kind of a lot, but that allows you to have a much lower torque to keep the seal, and the torque setting on these is at 48. Whereas a lot of conventional engines would be 90, which is going to put a lot more stress on the bolts because they use much fewer bolts. So we just go around making sure we get one on every one, especially the ones under the rocker.
Those are a beveled washer, right, Ryan?
Yeah, they're beveled. You've got a bevel there, so you put the bevel up, is the way they were designed to be fitted.
Go.
So we got the head on and we've got all the nuts and washers on, and we're just pulling them down to, they're just touching. The process we're going to go through next is the torquing of the cylinder head, and we're going to do that in such a way that the head is tightened from the center out, and it's done on two areas that way, and I'll explain that to you when we get the torque wrench set up.
Go.
So we're going to torque the cylinder head, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to torque the center, and then I'm going to torque the outside from the center. So the reason for doing this is the theory that when you tighten the center, you're pulling that in so that the rest of it can go down. If you pulled in these end nuts, you get an up, and it doesn't go down evenly. So the theory is that we go down in the center, through the center, and then we go down in the center, through the center. And so this is the way we're going to do it. I've set the torque wrench to 30 pounds. As I said before, the final is 48 pounds, but I'm going to pull this down. Hear the click. And then I'm going to go over here and pull this down. And I'm going to go over here, pull that down, and back over here, pull that down, pull that down. Go out over here, back to here. So now I'm going on to the outside row. Oops. And that's the torque. That's torque to 30 pounds. I'm going to turn the torque wrench up to the 48 pounds, and then we're going to do the same thing again. So we've put it up to 48. You can see there's a lot more effort in there.
Did that one
Missed
already.
it, yeah, sorry. So that's the inner. Now we're going to do the outer. And that's down to 48. We've all of the nuts are tightened down and nothing's pulled out, so we're all set. Okay, so we've done the B side. We're going to do the A side exactly the same way, so there's no need to bore you with watching me do that over again. So we're going to put the camshaft in now. I've washed out the bearing surfaces with the brake clean, made sure there's nothing laying in there. I'm going to take a little bit of this engine building fluid and put it around the bearings. And we're going to do them all, and the reason for doing them all is, as you can probably guess, as the camshaft goes through, it's going to wipe a lot of it out. So if you put it on the camshaft, only the first bearing is going to get a good dose of it. The other bearings are going to lack some of it. Anyway, that's so we're going to put it all on the bearings there. And so now we're going to take the camshaft. You can see we've had this camshaft reprofiled and all done. So we're going to go through, but we're going to keep it dead straight. If you have it upright like this, these nasty bits on the cam lobes aren't going to tear a groove into your bearing. So we keep it upright, keep it dead center through the hole. Keeping it centre, you don't want the bearing surface torn up. And then we're going to, now we've picked up 2 bearings, you see that? So now, go through again. I'm supporting it underneath and keeping it straight so as to avoid any problems with the loads. Okay, so there it is, it's in there. So we've got the camshaft in. You can see that it turns nice and free. There's no binding or anything like that. And we're in good shape there. Okay, so we're now going to fit our tappet holders. The bottom of the tappet holders has a point at which the dowel pins pick up. And they're all a little different because of the way that they're structured. So you need to get your, when you put them in, you've got to make sure that you get the dowel pin picked up, which obviously you're going to have to because the bolts aren't going to go in if you don't have them in the right position. But so they've each got a lock tab on them, like so, which so many of the parts do. So we're going to put those in there. Make sure we get the lock tab down the hole. Some of the aftermarket lock tabs are not as good as the original ones. So sometimes you have to be prepared to do a little bit of bending and making sure that they go in. So there's one, another one. You've got to get that lock tab into that groove. Probably one of the things you could do, you can see in the lock tab that the back part or the locking part of the lock tab isn't fully at right angles. I'm going to bend them at right angles and see if that makes it a bit easier to put them. So I'm just going to bend these down a little bit to make it easier to get them in so that they stay in the hole in the tappet block while I'm tightening them up.
Go.
Okay, so we've got the lifter, camshaft follower bodies on the crankcase, and I'm putting the lifters in. You can see that you have to be pretty straight to get them to go in, so there's very little clearance, which is good, of course. Bit of a wiggle and a push, and they're in. I haven't lock tabbed them yet, and I'll get to that. But what we did with the lifters is we primed them. And what I mean by priming is we put a...
I did a videotape of it.
Okay, we're done.
Sorry, I should have mentioned that.
So we're continuing to put these in. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to lock up the lock tab shortly, and we can then continue on with the valve train. We can put the push rods in, put the rockers on, the rocker shafts, and make sure everything's cool there.
Okay, on these, Ralph had to run up and get some stamps. These have a little hole in the middle here, and you can depress them with a paper clip, and this will push all the way down if the paper clip's in there. So I'm going to set that in a bath of oil, and I'm going to push down on the valve, and I'm going to pump that. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I'm going to pump that until it gets full of oil. Okay, and at the end they should be real hard. At the beginning, you can actually push the top down halfway without putting that paper clip in there. So that's how you pump those up.
I'm going to lock up the tab washers now. I've got the all the lifters in, and I'm happy with them. So I like to use these what we call water pump pliers, and it gets the tabs nice and tight against the side of the head of the bolt, and I feel that's the best way to secure them. Anyway. Okay, so we're all done there. So we're ready to, the next thing to do to these is to put the push rods in. So we've got the thrust plate that keeps the camshaft in the block and stops the movement of it. So what we need to do is we need to check that there's no real wear on this area here, as if the camshaft has been pushed forwards. The oil squirt pipe, which is the feed from the camshaft area here onto the gears there, generally you're not going to take it off, but if you take it off, you're going to need to make sure you've got this lock tab in place and ready to bolt up, because you wouldn't want it to come loose, obviously, in its location, or the pipe would end up inside the gears. So you need to make sure that this is well tabbed and tight. So now we've got that taken care of. What we're going to do is we're going to put this onto the block there, and find the lock tabs which suit the bolt spacing. We've got the thrust pad on the crankcase. I've got all of the bolts started. You can see the lock tabs are all there. And you can also see on this support for the squirt pipe, you've got a built-in lock tab, two of them actually. We'll only be bending the one of them as it was originally. So we're going to tighten those up and move on. You can stop.
All right, good.
Okay, so we're just bending up the lock tabs now. We've got the bolts all tight. Bit fiddly, it's kind of tight. But like I said earlier, I like using the water pump pliers to get the lock tabs nice and tight. And then of course on this one, we use that bent piece of steel, which is part of the support for the squirt pipe. Just push that in a little bit, get it to the center of the wheel, give that a little tweak just to make it go there. Don't want it touching the wheel, but you want it into the teeth. So that's the front half of the camshaft. I've just got one more here. There you go. Nice and tight. and that's the front half of the camshaft done. We're going to go to the back of the camshaft and put the distributor drive.